My team and I have helped hundreds of companies like these hire and recruit employees through social media. We've helped everybody from large enterprise teams to small businesses to staffing agencies get results like this, and this. In this video, I'm going to talk about whether or not social recruiting actually makes sense for your situation, which platforms work best for which roles, and the exact strategies that we've built into HireLine, our recruiting software that's used by hundreds of companies. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear playbook that you can start using immediately to get more hires. First, should you even be recruiting with social media, or should you stick with traditional job boards? Here's what the data shows across hundreds of our clients. Social media recruiting solves one core problem. People only use job boards when they're actively looking for a new job. Think about how often you personally use job boards like Indeed or ZipRecruiter. You've probably used them quite a bit if you were actively looking for a new job. If not, you haven't opened them up for months. But right now, you're watching this video on YouTube, and you've probably used TikTok or Instagram much more than you've opened up ZipRecruiter recently. Only a small percentage of people are actively using a job board at any given time, but everybody uses social media every single day. This means that social media is much more effective at reaching candidates who have jobs but aren't currently looking for new ones. This matters the most in two situations. The first is when candidates are in extremely high demand, because if everybody wants to hire them, they can easily get a job without going to job boards. For these ultra competitive roles, it's not that there's going to be no qualified candidates on job boards, but there's going to be a lot fewer of them. So promoting a job on job boards with even a small budget might reach everybody that's qualified. When this happens, it's often difficult to get enough applicants to fill your role. And even if you increase your budget, it doesn't help that much, because everybody that's qualified has already seen your job ad. If you do decide to increase your budget, it just forces Indeed to start showing your job to candidates that aren't a good fit, because they don't have enough high quality candidates to show your job to. If you're recruiting for one of these hyper competitive roles, you need to be taking part of your job board budget and allocating it to social media, so you can also reach candidates who aren't actively looking for new jobs but are open to the right opportunity. For example, one of our customers, a data center contractor, was struggling to hire licensed journeyman electricians, a role that's very competitive because there's a national shortage. They kept increasing their Indeed budget, but the number of applications that they got from licensed candidates barely moved. They then switched part of their budget from Indeed to social media recruiting, and they were able to fill all of their open positions in just a few weeks. The second most common situation where social recruiting makes sense is when you're recruiting for a position where traveling or relocation is expected. Common examples of this are CDL drivers, traveling superintendents, or travel nurses. Job boards are built to show jobs to people in a specific area, but they're terrible at reaching people beyond that area. Social media, on the other hand, gives you much more control over which areas you choose to target, and allows you also to focus exclusively on people who are willing to travel for their job or people who are willing to relocate. For example, one of our customers, a seafood processor based in Alaska, needed to hire people that were willing to relocate to a small Alaskan town with a population of less than 10,000 people. Social media was able to fill those roles in weeks where job boards couldn't. So now that you know when social media recruiting makes sense, let's talk about how to actually do it. There are two broad categories of social media recruiting: free or organic content, or paid advertising. I'm going to first talk about paid ads because it's the much more effective approach. It works faster, reaches more qualified candidates, and takes less effort to set up. But as the name implies, it does require a budget. Typically at least $15 to $30 per day for most US roles, but it can go up to even $100 or $200 per day for very competitive positions such as physical therapists or physicians. To get started with paid ads, the first step is to identify which platforms you plan to advertise on. There are 6 major platforms to choose from: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Meta is a great platform for getting started because with one account, you can advertise on both Facebook and Instagram. LinkedIn is great if you're looking to reach professional white-collar audiences. TikTok is good for reaching a younger audience, and YouTube is the best platform for reaching a wide variety of audiences because it has the biggest reach of all platforms. Once you've decided on a platform, you'll need to create a post to advertise. When creating a post, you should first start with the basics, which is to understand what job you need to promote. Do not just make a post promoting the vague idea that your specific company is hiring, which is a most common mistake that I see so many companies making. The idea is that when somebody sees your post, they should have enough information to know whether or not to take 20 minutes out of their day to apply for your position. So at the bare minimum, your post should advertise information like the name of the company, the title of the job, the location of the job, and the salary of the job. If you're advertising 2 separate jobs, then you should be making 2 separate posts. Once you've made your post, the next step is figuring out how to collect your candidate's information. Here's the core principle. Your application process needs to work on a mobile phone, and you cannot require a resume up front. 99% of the time somebody sees your ad, it's because they're scrolling on their phone. Even highly qualified candidates won't ever have the resume saved directly onto their phone. This is why the biggest mistake I see companies making is linking directly from their ad to their company's career page. I've yet to see a careers page that both optimizes for mobile and doesn't require a resume. If you link directly from an ad to your careers page, expect to spend 10 to even 20 times more on your advertising budget to get the same number of applicants. Instead, here's what you should do. Use the native form builder inside the platform you're advertising on. Every major platform, Meta, LinkedIn, YouTube, has a built-in form that lets candidates submit their information without ever leaving the native app. It's extremely smooth for the candidates to submit their information, and it's simple for you to set up when creating your ad. Another reason to use the platform's native ad is that it will track when somebody submits the form. So the AI learns which audiences are converting and optimizes your targeting over time. Now, if you want more control over your branding, you could use a third-party form builder like Tally, Typeform, or Perspective. But here's the problem. If you decide to do this, expect to spend more for each candidate because these platforms load slower than the native form within the app. And the platform will no longer be able to optimize its AI targeting because it doesn't know who filled out the form. If you want AI to optimize your targeting, you'll need to make sure to send that data back to the platform yourself. For most people, I'd recommend sticking with the native platform forms. They're simple, they work great, and they don't require as much technical setup. Now, once you get your candidate's info, here's where things can get a bit tricky. You still need to collect the resume. Most companies handle this by manually texting, calling, or emailing their candidates requesting for the resume, which works, but it's extremely time-consuming. And honestly, this whole process is very time-intensive because all of this work needs to be done every single time you want to advertise a new job. That's why we built Hireline.com, which automates this whole process. You simply paste in your job description, and then we create the ad, set up the forms, and our AI chatbot collects the candidates' resumes. We also feed back data to each platform, so targeting keeps improving as you use Hireline. Now that we've covered paid ads, let's talk about free content. If you don't have the budget for ads, you can still go with organic content. It's slower and requires more manual effort, but it can work if you're willing to put in the time. However, it's not as simple as making a post and hoping for the best. Simply making a post rarely works unless you already have a large following on social media, or you can consistently go viral. So if you don't have a massive following and can't go viral consistently, there's really only one strategy that works well right now: posting in industry-specific Facebook groups. Here's how it works. First, find Facebook groups where your target candidates spend time. If you're hiring CDL drivers, then look for CDL-specific groups. If you're hiring nurses, then look for nursing groups in your local area. These groups exist for almost every industry and every role. The key is to find active groups with engaged members. Once you've found the relevant groups, join them and post about your job. Make sure your post includes the same core information that we mentioned previously: job title, location, salary, and anything else that makes the job appealing. Here's an example of somebody making a post using this exact strategy. The advantage of posting in groups is that the members are actively checking these groups. If you post in these groups, your post is much more likely to be seen and seen by the right person than if you were to post just to your personal or company page. A few best practices to keep in mind. First, read the group rules. Some groups have specific rules around what you're allowed to post and what's not allowed. Second, don't spam the same group with multiple posts all at once. Make sure to space them out. And lastly, if people comment on your post, make sure to engage with those comments so that your post has increased visibility. This approach does take more time, but it's completely free and definitely works if you're willing to put in the time. So those are the basics of social media recruiting. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.